Thanks, Lalit, Hemant, and Shri for joining us. We will go through somewhat about the history of DevSecOps and then where we are today. How would you advise a new team to sort of adopt these practices, and how do you see the future, right? Because with the Corona world, everybody is talking about how things are going to be different in future. So we'll explore a little bit of that, right? So with that, let's get started. And I would love to start with Hemant, you, right? And it's interesting that Pramati, for the youngsters, right? Pramati was one of the earliest, if not the earliest, product story from India, taking on the likes of IBM and was it Oracle? Oracle in the web server space. So I think you've seen the world, right? So, how have you seen things? How did we get here, right? It used to be development and then it became development and ops. And now it is DevSecOps, right? So, what led to this whole thing that a developer ought to take up all of these three things?
I think, thank you, Anshuman, and welcome to all the participants. So I think when things really started, it's all about, building stuff, developing the software, right? And in fact, if you go back a little bit further in the past, right, even some of the quality practices were not as evolved, right? So obviously, I think the world moved from development to quality and then to, focusing a lot more on operations, right? And I think what we have seen is, as the software continue to establish itself everywhere, the high velocity technology becomes the foundation of competitiveness in the modern marketplace, right? If you look at it, right, today every business wants to be agile, every business wants to be innovative, right? And software is playing a very, very key role in the entire delivery mechanism, right? And like you spoke about Corona, right? I think software is becoming the de facto in terms of not only to survive, but also to look at, growth beyond once the current crisis is over, right? Yeah. And it leads us to an sort of a paradox that enterprises are facing, which is, how do we go faster, innovate, but also be secure, right? So I think that's the whole sort of a genesis of, bringing a lot more security in the DevOps cycle, right? And hence the evolution of DevSecOps. And as we go along, we can talk a little bit more about, some of these aspects as well.
Sure. And would love to get Lalit into the story, right? Because, today with automation, security has somewhat become a race, right? Because, while we have automation as a developer, the hackers also have automation, right? So, you hear about incidents where, somebody left the MongoDB cluster open with a default password and, hackers stole the data automatically. You have these scripts scanning them, encrypted your code and said, just send me some Bitcoins and, there is perhaps an automatic web server listening and, it will just return back your data for that, Bitcoin, right? So how do you see the security angle if you were to go a little bit deeper into that?
Thanks, Anshuman. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this conference. So now you rightly said it, and machines are attacking machines. Yeah. If I have to put it that way, it's no longer humans attacking, it's being programmed. Ransomwares have been programmed to attack machines. So one clear pattern is there is an automation, and that's a key word for everyone in security domain, especially that if you are not looking into the direction of automation, you are missing a lot. Now, in this journey, see on AWS, when people started their cloud journey, everyone actually unknowingly started with DevOps. Because not just the infrastructure, everyone got infrastructure and they can quickly deploy their application and get started with it. The cloud has actually propelled the culture of DevOps. Mm-hmm. And we have seen a lot of businesses, unicorns coming out of this practice. So there's a cultural barrier being broken between developers and operations. So the DevOps was there, but then it's all about, the question is, we need to secure our environment as well. Now, to secure our environment, we need to transition, or we need to fit in security right from the beginning. security is often considered as a bolt-on. I have prepared everything. My application is ready to go. Now go ahead and make it secure. That's a bolt-on security versus the DevSecOps advocates baked-in security. From two statistics, one, bolt-on security will always be expensive to operate and cost-wise. Well, let me give a simple example. A WAF, web application firewall, if I have to define it, it's a bandage on a wound. The wound is somewhere else. If I'm not following best practices of web security 101, if I'm writing unparameterized SQL queries, then of course there is a SQL injection vulnerability I have. So yeah, that culture is coming, and that you rightly said, and especially in this time, the last 3-4 months, we all have seen increased amount of attacks, mostly ransomware. And these are all automated. So automation is the key. I think we're going to talk a lot more about automation, but yeah, I want to stop here.
Got it. So it's machines versus machines, right? I mean, Terminator is here. So I think, getting back to Sri, right? And, I worked with Sri for a long time, right? And we remember the times, right? When as a developer, you had the right access, right? You had the database password and, everything. And bloody, you were not able to connect to database, right? And now, we are in a scenario where, you commit something on GitHub and it gets leaked, right? So how does a developer, right? I mean, what are the common things you see, right? As a developer that you have to take care about? What are the common mistakes that you see developers making, right? Whether it is pushing to public repository, it's just a single git command, right? Or perhaps, pushing to Docker Hub by mistake.
Yeah. No, so what a developer has to take care of I would say that OWASP Top 10 is a great starting point for all developers to be familiar. It lists the most common things that a developer should sort of do, and that I think is a good starting point. But I'd like to go further, right? You spoke about databases and access, and what has happened is in today's world where Docker, which is sort of a whole reproducible way of doing deployments and all of that. I think the key thing that as developers we can leverage is run your entire infrastructure in a containerized world, even in your laptops, even in your local development environments. Enforce your security policies locally as well. So if you're connecting to your local database, make sure that even that does not have full administrator access, so that even your app, when you have least security principles, even in your local development environment, you are much you're much better protected. You won't inadvertently depend on some other features which will cause security nightmares. So the whole aspect of bringing security earlier in your development aspect, that's to start at your laptop, at your development environment as well. Right. So that's what I would say. Keep the whole idea of DevSecOps is, at least in my opinion, bring all the security best practices that you would put in production. Do that in your local development environment. That's what I would say.
So basically, you're saying that if I can't hack, then a hacker can't hack.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good principle to follow. So I think let's get back to Hemant once again, right? So adoption challenge, right? I mean, you guys would have seen teams at Harness who are adopting Harness or others, right? What do you think are the common challenges that these teams face, right, as they're trying to weave in security from the outset, weave in ops from the outset?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic question, because even before we can jump into DevSecOps, I think the strategy around DevOps needs to be much better and firmly established, right? Because if your operations are not working well, right, or if you want to think in terms of pipelines or workflows or whatever it is, right, I don't think you will be able to sort of inject the security practices as part of the entire operation cycle, right? So I think the number one key challenge that we continuously see is that the whole process around DevOps and managing operations is still behind the maturity cycle, right? And some of the key challenges are there in terms of having consistency in implementation across the entire organization, right? Or when you write when you have different architectures within different groups, right? The approaches are very, very different, or even the tools used are sometimes not very standardized, right? So I think that's the first challenge. I think the second thing, and I think, you kind of referred to allude to a little bit in the previous question. I think the whole notion of using secret management, right? And we have seen, with tools like, for example, HashiCorp's Vault or something, these secret management tools offers a very good key management, encryption, and identity management features, right? And obviously, with Lalit there, I would also say AWS also provides a lot of good secret management capabilities. I think. I can go on and on, but I think these are a couple of big challenges where I see a lot of teams struggling with, and trying to sort of focus their energy in trying to be ahead of the maturity cycles.
Got it. So coming back to Lalit, you right, and I checked your LinkedIn profile. You have a statement there which says every security incident is a story, right? Yeah. And I was very tempted to add and say, and some are horror stories. So, how do we, from a mindset perspective, right? I mean, what is for a new team, right? A security incident sounds like something that people get fired over, right? So how do you handle that mindset? How do you change? How do you suggest the leadership team to, sort of the project leadership team to adopt DevSecOps?
So everyone is responsible for security. That's the first thing. For example, if you look at Amazon, what's our core business? Our core business is not retail. Our core business is not cloud computing. Mm-hmm. Our core business is security. Would you purchase something from someone who has a poor record of keeping your data, your credit card data, your information? Would you purchase from a vendor who does not keep your data secure? So our core business, or everyone's core business, is security. Mm-hmm. So that's the key thing, that everyone is a security engineer. I have to say that. That's a mindset, right? This is a cultural thing. There are two core tenets behind this. One, that we need to embed security knowledge into DevOps team, and which is a bigger task, is embed application development knowledge into security team, which is a much bigger task. Mm-hmm. Because the tide is in favor of developers. Mm-hmm. All the new security tools, they all are developer friendly, rather than we are getting rid of all traditional security tools. Would have been tough 5 years ago, have a conversation around SIEM. Mm-hmm. Today we open SIEM and discuss about how SIEM internally works, that behind the scene, there's a correlation, there's a MongoDB kind of database running, there's a NoSQL database running. Mm-hmm. So those kind of conversation we have started getting. So security, first is a mindset. And second is a good set of security tools that need to be identified and adopted. Okay. Automation, as I said, is the core for DevOps as well as for DevSecOps. Mm-hmm. One thing that we can build with developers is, early on, is threat modeling. Now, as I always take an example of WAF, that we are going to apply a web application firewall once the application is being deployed, which we are trying to address web security vulnerabilities in our application code. Rather than that, if we can start with threat modeling, like what is the authentication method? What if this authentication method is being broken? Who have permission to what? How this could be compromised? So that's one thing that we can start early on and bring everyone on board with security.
Makes sense. So I think, taking that conversation further, right, and we'll come back to tools and, what is the spectrum of tools available that we should explore and think about, right? But, I keep going to Shri for the developer point of view, right? But, isn't that too much for a developer? I mean, don't you feel as a developer you sometimes get overwhelmed, Shri, with you have to think about ops and automation and security, and you want me to do everything. I'm responsible for everything. How do you deal with that?
No, it's tough just being a developer. So it's not, and while the focus here is on security, right? I would also say that there's performance, there's scalability, there's usability, accessibility, all the things that end with EP. And I'd argue that we could have as many detailed conversations about each of those aspects. So yes, it is difficult being a developer. I think what we need to do as organizations, right, have specialists which know the detailed depth of it, but as an application developer you really need to know the breadth of it and rely on automation as much as possible. So a lot of the things, at least in the security space today, can be automated. So looking at tools, looking at processes, looking at all of that to automate as much, because it's not humanly possible to even understand all of the nitty-gritties of security. So I think automation is the only way forward. So I think, to summary, you need to be aware of the breadth. You need to be aware of, at least like Lalit said, the threat models of what are the different agents or actors that can come and attack my system. So broad awareness, and beyond that, automation.
So, either Lalit or Hemant, right? If you guys have any comments on that. Basically what I heard was you should be a full stack developer, right? And the stack is not just back end, front end, but it's also, automation, infrastructure, security, the whole deal.
Yeah. So definitely, I think, and Shri is right? Like, it's tough being a developer. And I think what we have to also understand is that a lot of practices, a lot of things are moving upstream, right? Earlier on, it was, you can call it waterfall or whatever model, right? Where you develop something and then some other team will test it, and then some other team will look at the security. And what people have realized with that model is that it's very, very expensive, right? It is expensive to log an issue. It is expensive to fix an issue, right? And you can look at different stages, right? If a customer finds an issue, it's super expensive, right? If your internal teams find an issue, it is less expensive. If the issue is found at the point of being developed, it is very, very easy, right? You don't log tickets, right? Like, as a developer, if you find an issue in your code, you don't log tickets, and then it's a big cycle, right? I think the same thing, the same pattern we are seeing with the security, right? And I think that makes sense, right? Because at the end of the day, it is the customer that we serve, right? And we would like our customers to be super successful, right? We don't want our customers to find defects in our product, right? So the onus is upon us. And I think that's the reason this shift is also happening. And I believe if you look at from a business perspective, I think that's the right shift, right? And how do we deal with that? We will have processes, automation, tools, etc. that are coming up, and that will continue to come up in this direction.
Got it. Makes sense. So let's go into the tools then, right? Because in this whole wide spectrum, right? And let's start with Lalit in this case first, right? How do we think about, right? If I were to do an audit of a team which, let's say, has the best DevSecOps practices, then what are the types of tools that they have adopted during the development lifecycle, so to say?
I think so. There are multiple tools, and newer tools will keep on coming.
Yeah.
The way I would look at it is I will ask the question what we are trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it should always start, that what we are trying to build, and what kind of security controls we want to achieve with this. Because every application, different verticals, different domain, they might have different requirements. There are, of course, some baseline requirements for every application. But depending on domain, depending on the kind of application, it differs. The first question is what we are trying to accomplish, what controls we require. Then focus on the use case, identify your options for security tooling and automation. Now, we should keep in mind organizational roles and processes. Organization may already have certain set of tools. Bringing in too many tools also disturb the ecosystem. So if I take a very common scenario that DevOps goes ahead and build an application, deploys it, right from there, we need to inject now security so that it becomes DevSecOps. So first thing is, while building the code, is there a code analysis being done?
Right.
We often hear immutable infrastructure when we talk about DevOps. However, in immutable infrastructure, are we also assuming that multiple layers of security are there? For example, do we have antivirus, anti-malware software installed along with our application? Do we have a scanning mechanism where we can scan what kind of vulnerabilities are there?
Right.
Do we have a patch management solution integrated? So do we have in short, do we have a golden AMI best practices, or let me change the word from golden to secure AMI best practices, so that always my secure AMI goes in. Now there are multiple tools comes in. There are scanners, which does, let's say, vulnerability assessment, CVE findings. Then there are, of course, compliance management. If my code has some kind of over permissive things, or my application is open to the world. So this could be part of my compliance, but I need a tooling around it. And the tooling could be as simple as the Terraform linter. As simple as that. There could be like in CloudFormation, we have CloudFormation Guard, which can actually do static analysis of code. Similarly, there is audit, what logs we are writing, what information we are writing in the logs.
Got it.
So there is a whole plethora of tools, but I think one should take a stock of what are the current practices, because we can't bring in too many changes, and first try to adopt the tools which are already accepted at an organization.
Got it. So I think, carrying on that further, right? And Hemant, you are sort of in the DevSecOps business, right? Definitely the DevOps business. I don't know if you guys have something around security as well at Harness, but, a tool like Harness, right? Or at an organization like Harness, right? How do you approach these, the questions that Lalit raised, right? That there's so many different options, so many different expectations, so many different teams, right? So how would a tool, sort of integrate all of that and get to the final solution?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a general feeling that any organization have a lot more security tools than they are actively using it and leveraging them, right? So you most often don't need lot many tools, but you actually want to ensure that you are using those to derive benefit. I think the way we look at Harness and also from a customer's point of view, I think the focus is very, very strongly to define the playbooks, right? And then the playbooks are codified in terms of your CI/CD pipelines and your workflows, right? And talking about Harness as a product, right? Like you can automate your pipeline, your workflows, right? And then you can repeat it. You can achieve a repeatable execution of those pipelines, right? So and you can use pretty much any tool that can allow you something like that, right? So what happens is any deployment that you do, right? And let's say you have defined, let's say a static analysis tool or a dynamic scanning tool, or, you have some pre-deployment audits or a post-deployment audits, right? Or let's say you are managing secrets, right? You can actually ensure that, the governance is there in terms of all the product that you deploy, right? And we have seen ourselves as well as our customers achieving a situation where we are doing more mitigations rather than dealing with more incidents, right? And that's where you want to be, right? You want to be able to mitigate issues in advance proactively rather than having them as an incident, right? So I think having that playbook, codifying it, running it repeatably are some of the things that you need to look into it. And I think CI/CD pipelines or workflows is a great way to sort of integrate those kind of things.
Got it. Makes sense. So I think, we have probably another 2 minutes, and, it has been an excellent discussion. thinking about the past and the evolution and the current, plethora of tools and, these integrated approaches like Hemant, you talked about available, right? How do you guys see the future, right? I mean, what is the next thing which will get added to DevSec and something ops, right? Is there something like that? Is there, I mean, how are things going to evolve from here, right? So I think Hemant, you can perhaps go.
Okay. Yeah, you want? Okay. Yeah. So I think as we were discussing earlier, I think the maturity of the DevOps is something that you will see a lot more organization going towards that, adopting a lot more automation. And I think the other point that we were discussing, right, the security tools are going to become a lot more developer friendly. And we are seeing with things like SonarQube or whatever it is, right, they become a little bit more accessible from a basic security point of view, right? So that's the direction. I think the other trend that we are seeing is, in some way at Harness, we are also looking at it, is how do we bring the entire machine learning paradigm to identifying security vulnerabilities, right? And it is very much possible, to look at, for example, the output of some of your scanning tools or, some of these reports, etc., and feed into your machine learning to find anomalies, etc., right? So that it becomes easier to be able to analyze the issues that your tools are finding and bake them into your security. So there is a lot of things that are happening both in terms of maturity and in terms of innovation around this area.
Got it. And Lalit, what about you? I mean, do you see machine learning going to be one of the key differentiators? What are the other trends around this that you see?
Definitely, machine learning is definitely one of the key differentiator. And whom do we go to for machine learning? Developers. So I would say that adding on to what Hemant said, that identifying security champion into each development team, that could be one thing. Second is recruitment for alignment. Recruit as per your requirements. So a lot of people ask me, what are the core skill set you are looking for in a security engineer? Python and SQL. If I were to say this very loud and clear, that these are the two core skills. My 50% of time goes in utilizing GitHub and various open source tools. So developers, while they are overwhelmed, there's also a great opportunity, and so security is all about developing tools as well. So if I were to say this, so Python SQL becomes the key skill set for security. So I think there's a huge change around there. And the other thing is, of course, culture. Once you bring in culture, then machine learning and everything will come very naturally, because it's all just a matter of trying out new things with new data points and running analytics. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. And the last word, Shri, right? So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the future? And if you were to summarize the past for us, that would be great as well.
Yeah, actually, to understand what the future, I think, the past has taught us that security and all of these tools comes in cycles. So there's always this back and forth between specialized security teams versus developers knowing everything and going back. So today we are in the shift left, which is everything that is done by developers, and therefore I think there will be in the future, I'm seeing again that with the explosion of tools and cloud and all of that, there will again be a time when people will say, well, we need more specialized security personnel, security people. So I feel that it is just going to evolve in circles and larger spirals. That's what I would think. That's at least the past tells us. That's what the past tells us, I'd say.
Okay, great. And I think, Ayush, we can take questions, and while people are writing that down or you're compiling that, I can just summarize, right? And thanks a lot, guys. And this has been a really educational session. I'm definitely sure for me, and I'm pretty sure for the audience as well, right? And so some of the takeaways for me have been, I think the biggest thing is machines fighting machines, right? As a developer, we think, oh, this is just a 5 minutes thing. I will push it onto GitHub and, somebody else will download it and I will drop it. machines don't need 5 minutes, they need 5 seconds to just clone that, right? About the tools, I believe that was a great point, that first understand what you need, and then threat modeling is an important skill set for developers to learn. I believe, Lalit, your WAF as a bandage, is a great metaphor that everybody should take away with. And, that is a very, very interesting way to remember that, security needs to come first, not after, sort of we are wounded, right? So, and let's go to Lalit, right? AWS, everybody's fascinated by it, right? So what are the new things you guys are doing in the security or ops domains?
So for security, there are a lot of new things are happening in terms of machine learning. I'll give you an example, and I want to take a cross-organizational and cross-functional example. Last week, there was something called predictive maintenance. There was an algorithm being released called predictive maintenance. Now, predictive maintenance, I'm a little old, but I come from that we have seen the message, smart imminent failure for hard drives. What is that? That's just a number of bed sectors, and after the threshold is breached, it's giving me an alarm.
Right.
Similarly, for security as well, there are multiple entries in the log. We can see a threshold, and we can apply the same, which is being designed for maybe industrial IoT solution, that in case of, let's say, there is a AC going down in a factory, or there's a machine going down in a factory. That's a predictive maintenance.
Yeah.
The specific use case it is designed for.
Yes.
But how do you apply it to security? Because in security as well, there are log lines coming in and indicating that one of the system is overwhelmed, or there are a lot more number of packet drops.
Right.
So we have to start thinking cross-leveraging each of those tools.
Interesting.
That's what's happening, yeah.
Got it. Ayush, we have questions or?
We have a question from Kaushik. So his question is, as developers, we often miss out focusing on security until there is a fire. How do you think we should set this practice in everyone's mind from the start?
Yeah, so my simple pointer is when I speak to a different organization, I always say, do you have a threat modeling practice for your application? Because by that, you have to involve your developers to understand the user flow, the data flow in application. And that's when you can point out, okay, what is the authentication mechanism? Where are you saving the data? Where are you writing your credentials? Are they written in a plain text, or are they encrypted, tokenized? All these questions comes in, and you start thinking more from, oh, I'm writing an application, which is a beautiful app, but it has so many vulnerabilities. So I think threat modeling is a practice that organizations should look forward to or adopt.
Got it.
And a couple of things that what we do is we do an security architecture review right at the beginning of developing a feature, right? While not every small feature can go through that, but most of our big ticket items do go through that as part of the process, right? The other process that we follow is the end of sprint, we do a security review of whatever we are sort of completing, right? So my suggestion is establish a process that the team can follow and make it practical to begin with, right? Compliance with whatever process that we have established and following is a great way to get started.
Got it. That's an excellent advice.
We have Manshu who wants to ask a question. Manshu, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys can hear me, right? So I was saying, I think all the things that you guys talked about looks very good for small companies, product companies. But I was just thinking for the enterprises, this DevSecOps still evolving, right? And they have big disjoints. There is an IT department, there is a security department, there is a QA department, there is a development. What they can do so that they also start adopting some of these things. I know there is a culture change that they want to have it, but anything that you guys have as a suggestion which they should do it.
Hey, Himanshu. So I think that's a fantastic question, and I think I was referring to some part of it earlier also. is that I think the maturity on the DevOps side itself is lacking when the size of organization is big and large, because different groups have different practices, different requirements, and sometimes it's very, very segmented. In fact, I was on a call with one of the world's largest financial company, and we were talking about some of the things around DevOps. They've been trying to mature their entire DevOps for past 3 years, and they haven't achieved much success, right? And there are so many different reasons, some of them that you have mentioned, right? I think the first step is, and the way we advise them also, is to start with certain teams and start automating as much as possible, right? Like define those pipelines, define those workflows, and let the team run through them as part of their deployment cycles, right? And whatever approvals or whatever you want to bake in those automation steps that you can do, right? And once you have seen certain successes, right, in small groups, and then you take it to a larger, broader teams, etc., right? But yes, I think it's a bigger problem when there are a lot of these heterogeneous groups and something like that. It's a tough problem.
Thanks for taking your time out. It has been a great discussion. I'm sure, I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience also did as well. So thanks again for, giving your time to us.